Hey guys, today we're going to be reviewing two pretty damn bad movies. Paul Blart Mall Cop 2, as well as Unfriended, also known as Cyber whatever from beforehand. But it's Unfriended now, and it's wide release. We saw Unfriended today, and Paul Blart 5 days ago on Thursday. Just now getting around to making a video for some reason. So, we're going to compare and contrast, and decide which one was the worst. So, Aiden bet from the start that Paul Blart was going to be worse than Unfriended. And I believed Unfriended was going to be worse. You'll see the outcome of that later. Aiden, what's the plot synopsis for Paul Blart?
In Paul Blart Mall Cop 2, Paul Blart goes to a convention in Las Vegas for mall cops and uncovers a plan to steal artwork. What did you think of the movie, Connor?
Well, I thought Paul Blart Mall Cop 2 was terribly unfunny, bad in almost every way, but it had so many bad elements to it. I had fun making fun of Kevin James and the actors involved, because it was both obvious that they weren't trying on one hand, and on the other hand, it felt like a huge cash-in. Like, everything was just the same from the first movie, just put in a different environment. Like, how he took him out by sheer luck, the things he would do, like the slide where he slid too far. Like, I was like, when's that gonna show up? And then he does it, and it's like, literally 10 seconds after I said it. It was stupid. That's my thoughts. Those are my general thoughts, at least.
Yeah, like you said, the movie was terribly unfunny. There was only one time that I laughed at the movie, and it's when he goes under a little girl's ice cream cone because he needs sugar, and it looks like he's getting cum blasted. And it goes on for like
going for it.
That's not what it was going for, but it was going on for like a minute, and they're just dripping white stuff all over his face.
No, it was pink. But okay, so I made a Snapchat called Paul Blart Likes Huge Dick, and I just drew a picture over Paul Blart. There were a bunch of people in the theater, but I don't think anyone else cared enough that I was drawing dicks over Paul Blart with my full lighted screen on. But like 2 seconds later, like he's just sitting there and it's dripping on his face and he's like, it's missing me, and it's just trying to be funny, like how he's eating ice cream. But I mean,
he's like subliminal. He's licking. He's like.
I think the subliminal messaging was obvious there. Like, I know Kevin James was probably going for that. The crew had to have known what was going on. But obviously, for kids, it's like, oh no, he's just eating ice cream. But the hardest part I laughed at is the guy in front of us legitimately thought this movie was hilarious. He was laughing all the time.
There was some old guy, and he had the funniest laugh. And at one point in the movie, he laughed at some terrible joke. I don't even remember what it was. And I just cracked up laughing for a half minute so hard that I was crying. But the movie was just so boring. They had a subplot with his fat daughter, and they're like, they had a subplot with the daughter, and she wants to get with the guy from Wizards of Waverly Place. Oh, yeah, and because I do know who that is. And they get kidnapped by the
KGB or whatever.
They weren't KGB, they were art thieves. And then basically the whole movie is just another shitty remake of Die Hard.
The comedy Die Hard in a mall, this time in a hotel.
And there was a lot of cringeworthy scenes, like the scene where Paul Blart and the bad guy have a face-off and they're screaming at each other, and then the woman from who actually was in that show, that reality show about...
I don't know if that was actually
I'm pretty sure it was.
It was called the Mall Cops of Mall of America, and we know Mall of America well, because we're just a train right away, because we're badass.
But it was a interesting, terrible movie.
Well, Aiden, what was your favorite and least favorite part of the movie? I'm gonna cut you off here so you don't keep going too far.
My favorite part My favorite part was Paul Blart getting cum blasted. Other than that, the really bad CGI at the end where Paul Blart gets kicked by a horse. My least favorite parts were
that was the end.
the fact that they made a movie based on a movie that people only saw because it had a silly name.
Paul Blart Mall Cop is a catchy name. Like, I'll never forget that, dude.
I'm gonna,
Things will pass.
I'm
Like,
gonna
one
die
day I'll
with
be
it.
like, who are the characters from Mortal Kombat? That's Freezy guy and the other one. And then I'll be looking at Sonic and I'll be like, that's Sonic and the poop fetish boy or whatever, you know? That'll all go away from me, you know? But I think one day when I'm like 100, they'll be like, what's your favorite movie about mall cops? I'll be like, the one with Seth Rogen. Just kidding. I'll say Paul Blart because that name's impossible to forget. But my favorite part of this movie had to have been just Kevin James's performance was so phoned in, so bad, kind of pathetic. It was like watching the downfall of a man who never quite had a good career. He just kind of lived with Alpha Adam Sandler's success or whatever. And he did The King of Queens, and he's just an unfunny guy. Kind of just seeing him at his lowest point in his career, just the low point in his life that was kind of funny to me.
Cat, don't eat cords.
It was kind of hilarious to watch him kind of just, you know, like he's withering away. He's gonna pass on in a couple of years here probably. Probably blows a lot of his fortune on like coke and garbage to try and ease the pain that he's unfunny, but... But other than that, I guess my least favorite part was the Mexican daughter's whole, like, story arc. I don't know why I had to point out she was Mexican, but she's the daughter to Paul Blart. I don't know why I had to point it out. Like, the fat daughter, the Mexican daughter. There's only one daughter. Paul Blart's daughter's whole story arc I thought was dumb and contrived, and the villains were stupid. Like, they all had one gun the whole time, too.
They shared a
like,
gun.
just
They
shoot
only
the
had
guy.
one prop
They
gun.
had one prop gun in the whole movie, and they passed it around.
Also, remember that scene where the daughter pours water on the high-tech lock to short it out? Okay.
Yeah. Well,
There's a lot of dumb shit in that movie.
No, she didn't pour water on it. She's like, it's magnetic or something, and she
Oh, yeah.
did something. I
did
don't
something.
remember. I don't remember. It was dumb as fuck. It was dumb as fuck. But, yeah, so that was Paul Blart. Paul Blart was not a great movie. I guess my favorite part was just making fun of Kevin James. And I got enjoyment out of that. Like, I had fun just laughing at the fact that the guy in front of me was having a good time at the movie. Laughing at everything about the movie was kind of funny to me, you know? And
The concept of the movie was
the
funny.
concept of the
itself
movie was not funny, really. Because we saw it with Paul Blart 1. Just the idea of watching the movie and just... I don't know. I guess it was so bad that we
Fucking
kind of had
Velcro cat, quit.
something funny. Also, we got a cat. He's new, though. She is.
She's annoying.
She can get on your nerves a little bit. Anyhow, moving on. We saw Unfriended today. Unfriended was... I guess I'll do the plot for this one if you want me to.
Yeah, let's do it that way. You
did like you were uneasy, like, oh, my close-ups are always so good. We have to take 80 takes.
Okay, fine.
But,
oh my god,
you.
Kat,
Just let him eat the fucking Velcro. No one cares.
Quit.
He can eat the goddamn Velcro.
He's gonna hurt the cord.
Okay, Unfriended. He's gonna eat the cord if he ain't get the fucking Velcro. I don't care about the fucking Velcro. It's not a big deal.
Okay. Unfriended.
Holy shit. Unfriended is a movie about a group of friends who all are being haunted by Laura Barnes, who committed suicide because she shit herself. And then everyone's like, wow, you shit yourself, kill yourself, because that's what high schoolers do, you know? High schoolers go around and they tell each other to kill themselves for shitting their pants. And they call each other whores and stuff. And then through the movie, the multiple characters passed along, as expected. Laura Barnes made them commit suicide to death. That was her mystical power. And They learned a lot about each other, and how they turned out to be bad people and garbage, and you hated all the characters. Even the main character was kind of a shit garbage of a human being. In fact, there was only one character I considered not one. She still told the main character, or the Laura Barnes, to commit suicide because that's what high schoolers do, you know. So yeah, that's the plot synopsis of that. They all die. It's a jump scare. Garbage film that was filmed in 16 days and edited and all that garbage in a matter of 16 days. So, Aiden, what did you think about Unfriended?
Well, when we got out of Unfriended, I sent my friend a text about it. I described it as a lazier remake of Saw 4 with worse acting, and the ghost kept uploading memes to Facebook. And that's about what I felt about the movie. It was one of the worst movies I've seen in my life. It was a rip-off of Saw, except they filmed it all in a single room through computers, and and anytime they had to do something cool, like they'd be like, this guy's about to die, the internet would cut out and it would glitch up so that they could cheap out on effects.
They could do a jump cut, yeah.
Roughly 40% of the movie was the main character clicking through tabs and nothing happening, and man, this movie was really fucking bad. The acting was cringeworthy too.
Yeah.
That should probably be mentioned, but you know, as a whole, the movie was lazy and shitty. What did you think?
Well, I thought this movie was very trashy, and before we got into these movies, we had a little bet who I thought Paul Blart would be the better movie. Aiden thought Unfriended would. We knew both movies were going to be shit, no doubt, and unfortunately, I was right. Unfriended was a terrible movie, the worst movie I've seen in a long time. It was lazy in every aspect. Characters would die in stupid manners to make it cheaper. For example, we had one character who shot himself through the head, and the computer glitched. He grabbed his gun. There was a muzzle flash, and he fell back. No blood effects or anything because he fell back. You might have saw like a 2-second after effect of blood, but nothing really. You know, another character put his hand in a blender, so they had a blender on, and they just put fake blood in there, and it was shooting out, and they jump cut, and it was all jump cutted, so they didn't actually have to put on any prosthetics or anything. And then there was one where his face was near an off blender, but they had like a tube of blood coming out, and they kind of shook it up, and
it wasn't even really jump cuts, but it would like show his hand in the blender, and then the camera feed would cut out.
Yeah,
and then
that's what I was saying by jump cuts.
I was just explaining to people who hadn't seen it. And then it would show his face next to the blender. And in the end, like all more modern horror movies,
I was going to be able to finish my thoughts.
Sorry, go ahead.
But, yeah, so they cheaped out a lot. The movie just kind of seemed like garbage, and I think the only reason it really sold was by names. They actually changed the name so people would more cash into it, because people hear Unfriended, the horror movie about the internet, and they think, oh, this is... Well, it's exactly what it is. It's about some person that goes through the internet, but it's a dumb concept. It's done stupidly, you know. Everyone gets killed, but, like, even... I would say the most sympathetic character in this movie, she got killed, like, third to last, and they didn't really do anything with her. It was just this one girl that they did the least with, but every other character, including our main character, was just a shitty person, like we're supposed to relate to these high school kids, but it's just not how people actually act. You know, no one goes around and, you know, well, some people do this stuff, but no one to this extent. You're hard pressed to find every high schooler doing it. They're like, we all said kill you on Facebook, so it's fine. We all fucked each other's best friends, and we all fucking so on and so forth, you know? And all the characters were so shitty and bad that I wasn't rooting for the main characters. You should have at least one character in a horror movie you're rooting for, you know? And actually, the pothead fat computer hacker was probably the most sympathetic character, other than the blonde girl who gets murdered.
What did he shout at the start?
Oh God, I don't remember.
I can't remember his fake word
But
for undies.
they kept yelling really cringe-inducing lines. It's like, I like your undies.
Obvious hackers, obvious.
And then he was yelling like memes into the air. And they would always say, bye! Whenever they were backing out, even if it was just for a second.
And the ghost kept uploading memes
I couldn't tell
to
if that was supposed to be a
Facebook.
nod to the retarded policeman show. Yeah. Because that's what he would always do at the end of Retarded Policeman.
But for some reason, the ghost would upload private pictures of him. So, like, the main character girl slept with the guy who's not her boyfriend. And it was, like, ran through meme generator, so it had the text, and it's, like, not on the top, and then your boyfriend on the bottom. I'm like, what?
Yeah, no, the meme was really cringe-inducing. If it was just the pictures, it would be like, I don't know if it, like, I might be reading into this too much, but I think they're trying to do the metaphor for social media, because it's like, this'll never go away. You will always be known as blah, 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 who fucking got drunk at a party, and she's like, I'm friends with my mom on Facebook, or whatever.
And it has some pretty overt cyberbullying messages, like...
But, I mean, like, you gotta think about it this way. In this movie, it's like the villain, I don't know, the horror monster, Laura Barnes, shit her pants, and they posted it on Facebook. And then for some reason, these kids were all typing, kill yourself. They weren't making fun of her, they were just blatantly saying, might as well kill yourself. That's not how anyone actually acts, you know? Most people who say kill yourself, they say something stupid, and they're like, kill yourself sarcastically, maybe, but... I mean, most people aren't like, you shit your pants, you might as well kill yourself. That's not really how most people act. But that's how the movie was portraying it, and that was the really dumb part.
And don't forget, at the end, Laura Barnes uploads the video of the main character girl.
Yes, I was going to get to that.
And literally hundreds of comments appear immediately, and it's like, kill yourself, fuck you, you're a murderer, kill yourself, kill yourself. And
yeah, so
that's
basically,
not how it works.
At the end of the movie... Our protagonist, really, the girl, the blonde girl, and the fat hacker, were the only two that were, like, somewhat sympathetic. The fat hacker, he smoked weed, but I mean, let's be honest, like, 50% of high schooler kids probably do, and it's not anything that's, like, you deserve to get your hand blended off to death, or whatever. Like, he was a sympathetic-ish character. The boyfriend was kind of sympathetic, too. He actually didn't really do anything that bad.
Neither did the blonde girl who did...
Yes, that's what I said. I said the blonde girl, the fat guy, and the boyfriend really didn't do anything.
Really, it was just the main character.
The main character and douche guy both did a lot of douchey shit, and the whole time, I guess we were supposed to feel sympathetic for the main girl. I don't know why we followed her, why we didn't follow, like, the blonde girl. It's like her friends were shitty people, and then at the end, it would make more sense. Like this girl, the main character, was supposed to be, like, best friends with Laura Barnes, the girl who committed suicide in the movie. But, she was kind of like no one in the, I don't know how to describe it, but, like in the end, you just felt like your protagonist was a piece of shit, so you didn't want her to live by the end. The characters you kind of were rooting for died early on. So, by the end, I was like, well, who's left? The boyfriend and her, and you know, she was doing douchey decisions the whole time, even during the thing.
She even out-douched the douche and killed him.
Yeah, she killed the douche. There's just a lot of twists and turns that were just like made me think this movie sucks dick. You know, like the whole thing it was really just Saw mixed with like laziness is what it felt like.
Yeah, basically.
And then. In the end, I thought they did a pretty okay move. Like, the first good-ish move in the whole movie, they decided... So, you think the main character is going to live, and they post the video of her, because it turns out she was the one that took the video of Laura Barnes taking a shit in her pants or whatever. She didn't post it, but the boyfriend did or whatever. Okay, so he did do that. He was douchey there. So, I guess that was the boyfriend. But the hacker and the blonde girl were not being douchey. But she posted that video, and then it's like, now everyone's going to think this, or going to think bad of you your whole life. And then, immediately, like Aiden said earlier, they started posting on the video all the teenage kids. There was 1,000 comments instantly that said, kill yourself, and all that garbage. Which isn't how people act. react. But I mean, in that case, the outrage kind of makes sense. Why they were telling the girl who shit her pants that you should kill yourself is a different matter completely, which I think is retarded and kind of against the human nature anyone would do. So you think for a minute, like, the main character is going to have to live with the fact that she's now looked on as the person who basically murdered her best friend a year back, who caused her to commit suicide, and the reason, and all of her friends are dead now too, so she kind of has to live with that. Rather than doing that, and this was another problem with, what movie had this? Well, whatever, I'll talk about it quick. They go in, and basically basically you're like, wow, so now she's going to have to live with this. She's the person who has no friends anymore, they're all dead, and she has to live with the fact that everyone thinks she's the reason this girl committed suicide. Well, they basically got rid of that subtlety and the tortured feeling you could get from that character by killing her in a cheap 3-second jump scare where Laura Barnes becomes a zombie or whatever and kills her. And it was a 3-second full Disney Pixar animated scene, basically, where the zombie comes up and kills her in front of her CGI laptop, and it's like any subtlety you had from before, and like they even played it up like she was gonna survive, was gone. And I don't know if initially it was intended she was gonna live and everyone would be like, oh, you're kind of a shitty person, so we're gonna kill you. Because by the end, she would have been overwhelmed with guilt. So I figured what was going to happen is either she was going to kill herself or she was going to have to live with that. Either way, it would have been preferable to what happened in the end. Because in the end, it was a cheap jump scare. If she like put down the laptop and shot herself or stabbed herself or whatever without the influence of Laura Barnes, then it would show that she was basically realized what she did was wrong and that she no longer really had anything to live for because she lost everything because one stupid mistake or whatever. And I guess that would have shown subtlety and more of, like, why, I guess, cyberbullying could be bad. And maybe actually have a message that could teach the kids the teenagers primarily, who watch this movie, a message, like, through a horror movie that, like, don't cyberbully people because you're gonna fucking go to hell. And all your friends are gonna die. But instead, they traded all that for a cheap Blair Witch Project jump scare.
No, the Blair Witch...
Actually, no, Blair Witch Project
it was more like the end,
it was just a shape.
The end of Lazarus Effect, where
yeah.
they go, ah! And the end of the first Paranormal Activity, where the wife comes up to the screen and goes, ah! And basically every horror movie made...
And then it fades to like,
the title.
To the title, yeah. See, but Universal... I don't know if they bought the rights to the movie or if they just wide released... Whatever the hell happened, Universal wide released it before it was an indie movie. And they changed the title and stuff to Unfriended for marketing reasons. So I don't know if that was added later. I'm sure we could look it up online. Personally, I don't give a shit enough to.
I'm sure originally they had one that just said...
I'm sure...
Cyber horror? Cybernatural? Something like that?
Yeah, it was Cybernatural originally. So I don't know if they changed the subtitle, but I bet... I wouldn't be surprised if Universal was the reason they had to change it to her getting killed at the end, because Universal's like, she's a bitch.
That was the original ending.
It was?
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of a shame, because that just proves whoever made the film was just cashing in. Because everyone was comparing it, and by everyone, I mean... I should have elaborated. I mean, every commercial said it's the new Paranormal Activity, Blair Witch Project, and Saw. And what it was is it was kind of all three of... Yeah, they did.
Did they?
They said there were great movies, like paranormal things that changed the horror game, like the Blair Witch Project. Oh. It's starting with the Blair Witch Project, then going to Paranormal Activity and Saw. And I'm like, wow, 3... pretty much hack horror films compared to old horror films. Like,
I liked the first Saw.
But no, I don't mind the first Saw. I'm just saying, comparatively to old horror movies, they named 3. I mean, in the history of horror, you're looking at like the modern generation of horror, which I generally see as far less superior to something when you compare it to even like the 30s Dracula and stuff, you know. And Universal had a long line of horror movies beforehand, and I know they wouldn't be like, oh, compare this to our Dracula from 1931 with Bela Lugosi. Obviously, they're not going to compare it to that, but I'm shocked they're not like the old classics like Chucky and more of the Universal movies that they thought advance it. But I guess I'm not going to criticize it based on the commercial. I just thought it was weird, because that's really what they were going for, is they were going for elements of the Blair Witch Project, elements of Paranormal Activity, elements of Saw and then combining it with the new cybernatural idea.
It was basically found footage through the internet version of Saw.
Pretty much, yeah. It's not really found footage, because
I don't even. I guess.
I mean, the elements of found footage it had were the.
It's not really found footage though, because it's happening in real time, like a normal movie.
Well, it's happening in real time, but then it has like the shitty camera and the. It didn't do shaky cam, but anytime there was movement, like the boyfriend would always stand far back. And
I guess the
do a
closest.
freeze frame with glitches.
I suppose the closest comparison would be found footage. But I guess it's starting a new genre, because really it's not found footage. You can't really consider it that.
Yeah, it's...
Because found footage is like the documentary, and I don't know. It's a different genre. It's a new genre. And I guess it was kind of a creative idea. I just think it could have been done a lot better than it was. Like, the other problem is like they put down, like, the whole thing. It starts on a computer and everything, but it ends like that last 3 seconds off the computer. I would have preferred either the whole movie be on the computer, or have parts off the computer and parts off the computer, or even if it was a 10-minute introduction, computer, last 3 minutes. It just seemed odd that even we started of her logging on the computer. Like, I think it would have made more sense to whatever.
I also didn't like... It wasn't really a matter of laziness entirely, but almost any time that people were talking... Like, when it wasn't involving the ghost, and even sometimes when it was involving the ghost, she would be flipping to iTunes and change the music, and they would just be doing pointless little things in the background, and...
Well, a lot of it was, like, ghost research and stuff, but a lot of the footage, like it was, like, she goes onto a website, and then she leaves the website, and then she talks to her friends for a minute, and they're like, well, we kind of need more filler, so she goes back to the website and scrolls down more than before, but... I think it would have been cool, too. Like, she had all these tabs open, and, like, I think it would have been cool if maybe it starts out where she's Skyping these guys, and while they're doing other things, she was actually looking at other tabs that really didn't concern the movie, but she wasn't really looking at anything until they're like, what if Laura Barnes is really a ghost? Which is a conclusion they came to way too fast.
Oh, yeah.
They're like, it's the anniversary of her death, so it's probably not a hacker.
Well,
and
it was
like,
mostly the boyfriend who's like, it's obviously a ghost. Chun-Li, or whatever the fat guy's name was always like, no, it's just a hacker, bro. Hacker's obvious.
Well, that makes sense. The whole time.
That would make a lot more sense.
The whole time, because, like, it was like 5 minutes of it, and they're like, it's a hacker, and it's like, why would they hack? And then the boyfriend's like, why would they hack Laura's account right before the day of her anniversary of her death? Why would they do it any other time but now? It's like, well, I mean, if you're that douchey, I suppose that's a decent time to hack the account if you're that big of a douche that you're going to hack a dead girl's account and pretend to be her. I mean, if you're a douche, you're obviously going to stoop, or you'd be willing to stoop that low, most likely. But they instantly assumed, well, there's proof that she's a ghost, and they just rolled with it. They were right, but I mean, in real life, that would have been the most retarded thing, and six people would probably have come to the conclusion. Maybe one of them would have brought it up, but you think the other 5 would be like, you are a huge retard. But no, the first they're like, no, it's just a hacker. And then the one guy, the Chun-Li was the only one that kind of was a naysayer to that.
They even completely discounted the idea that it was a glitch. Like, they talked about it being a ghost and a hacker, and then someone says, maybe it's just a glitch, because there's this blue icon without a name, without the ability to remove it. I think that's the most logical thing. That's the first thing I would think of. I wouldn't be like, this hacker magically removed options from Skype.
Also, they exited out, but no one restarted their computer. No one thought to do that the whole time. And obviously our main character can't restart the computer because the whole thing takes place in the computer. And that would have been another advantage of doing real world things, but it's cheaper just to do it all on the computer, probably. Because if you did it outside, you'd have to do jump cuts, and you'd have to walk around. It'd be a huge fiasco. But, I mean, generally, I don't know. I guess we're at that point. What's your favorite and least favorite part of this movie?
My favorite part is that even though it's not done well, this is an original idea for a movie. It does attempt something. It's a twist on Saw, but it does attempt to do something in a new setting, which is over cyberspace, but it doesn't work out real well.
I wouldn't necessarily call it a twist on Saw, just kind of like obviously inspired by Saw. Just pointing that out because the twist would be a little closer, but you could see a lot of like the Game Master feel. Just that was my note.
Yeah, and then I guess my least favorite part was that the only part of the movie that I thought had some potential, which was the ending, was ruined by a shitty jump scare. So, your favorite, least favorite?
I guess my favorite part would probably be, I like how some things were integrated in the movie. I mean, they did some clever go-arounds, like, it would have been more boring without music, so they did integrate music at times, but it wasn't like, why is there background music to them on the computer? Everything tried to keep realistic in the way of sound effects, except for one thing, which I'll get into in a second, but everything was realistic. Like, you'd hear the computer clicks, the actual sound effects you'd hear on the computer. So in that way it was nice. And whenever music would play, she would go to her iTunes or whatever it was and open it up, the Zune store, whatever the fuck she was, whatever paid her. But they would open it up and they would actually play the music. They didn't do that often, as I would hope, because she would turn on music for like 30 seconds and then she would turn it off. So I didn't think the music was used well. Like, I don't get why she wasn't listening to it the whole time or long distances of time. Not necessarily the whole time. I would have liked if, instead of just listening to like part of a song, maybe there were a part of the movie where when she's just talking to her friends playing, maybe they were on a playlist and it actually goes like in actual iTunes, like between a couple songs, and maybe she stops in the middle and starts doing research or something. That would have been cool and added more realism to it, because realistically you're not listening to 2 minutes of a song that just happened to go perfectly with the mood, then turning it off, and then later on they used the horror, or the music as a horror element with the ladies, with Laura Barnes controlling the music through her ghost cyberness or whatever. So I thought like the sound editing was creative, aside from the fact everything was pretty realistic, and then like the sound editing, like for the jump scares, it'd be like his hands in the blender, and the blender would be way louder than you would actually hear it on the thing, and way too clear, like an unedited blender sound effect, even though it's him across the room doing it, and it's like it still does like the jump scare scream when the girls are doing it, where it's like the and it like crescendos loud and then kind of quiet or whatever. You know the jump scare one? You probably know what I'm talking about. Yeah. We can probably edit one here if we think about it. Do that, whoever edits this, and then but it does like the jump scare scream, and that was the only real takeout from that, and I'm not going to put that as my worst part, but I thought that was the stupidest part. Other than that, I thought the sound editing was kind of a clever way to go about that. I don't really have a huge complaint about that. Other than that, I thought a lot of the acting and stuff was poor, but my least favorite part probably had to be the deaths. I mean, if you're the budget's going to be low in this genre, and that's fine. If you're making a new genre that doesn't need budget, I'm not saying you need budget to make good movies, but you're probably going to make noise by doing that on the thing. But, sorry about that. But you save so much money on all this stuff. I know you're independent, but I would have done more with the kills. Like you could have done cooler things, and I'm not saying necessarily like it would be like she would shove like a curling iron in her mouth that's on, and you'd see like After Effects steam coming out. It's like, come on, you can do better than that. Put some actual effects into it. Maybe like, and also whenever they would die, their icon would disappear instantly, which you could assume is Laura Barnes doing it or whatever, which would probably be their excuse if you asked them. But it would be kind of cool if
the bodies were still sitting there.
I don't know if the bodies necessarily still had to sit there, because I think that would get distracting. But maybe for like a few seconds, like afterwards, you could show him and they'd be like, oh my god, he's dead. But it'd be like his hand's in the blender, then his face is on the blender, then it just cut to black. Maybe it would show him like dead, and then they would go off, so you could get more impact from the death. But it would be like, for a split second, you see his face on the blender and he's screaming, then it goes to black, and it's like, oh.
It's actually kind of interesting, because there's a girl who's only in the very start of the movie. Her name is Val. She's the first one to die. And when she dies, they don't know she's dead initially. They think her camera's frozen and she's just sitting there. And then her camera's not turned off until the cops come in.
But everyone else's does.
But everyone else's just turns off immediately, and then the ghost uploads a meme picture of the girl with the curling iron in her mouth.
I guess that time you could probably explain that too. And I'll defend it here. that might have been because the characters were like, is she dead or whatever? And then once the characters knew this was actually a life and death situation, then it'd be more scary just to kind of be like, I think they were trying to give you the vibe, like 6, 5, 4, because their pictures were getting bigger, and there was a one less picture or whatever, like it does in real Skype, then 3, 2, and 1. So it was kind of giving you like the countdown, I guess, vibe. So that's why I was glad it was gone, because it'd be a cluster if they were all just sitting there dead and she was there. But I would have preferred like after she dies, maybe there's a second where there's some really good makeup work and some blood, so you can actually like see the victims, and it's like, because like when you see the death, it's a jump scare, and then they disappear. Like it doesn't give you time to like sink in like the horror of it or whatever, because it just kind of, you hear the scream and her picture's gone. You see like a second of her dying or whatever, or him dying or whatever, and then their picture goes black like mid-death, and you see the meme on Facebook or whatever. And those were a lot of the missed opportunities, I think, with this movie, were the death effects. And then I think there were some cringe-inducing things where it's like outdated internet references that were just like outdated, or like things that they don't use. Like junior high students use memes. I don't know a single like high school student that uses a meme, in all honesty, not since like 2011. So I mean, that's a big problem, is they just didn't act like they would actually act. I don't think there are many people that are so cold-hearted that they would go around because someone shit themselves and say, kill yourself. Like, it just seemed unreal, and it made the characters so douchey. I didn't care about the characters, and it was obvious where the movie cheaped out. And that was the biggest problem for me, and that's what really killed this movie as a movie for me. Because I think as a concept, even keeping a full computer movie on a low budget, I don't care if you have a low budget, but there were things you need to do to make a movie look like, okay, this is the project you wanted to do, versus like just kind of like a crappy, we want to make money based on the fact that it's a horror movie on the computer, you know. But that's my thoughts on this movie.
And fun fact, they have already announced plans for both a sequel and a franchise surrounding the idea of computer-based horror.
Here's what I want them to do. I want them to up like, now that Universal's backing them. Apparently the budget was $1 million, but here's what I'm guessing. I'm guessing the original movie was like $25,000 budget to pay the actors and buy some costumes and shit, and pay directors and writers and garbage. And then after the fact, Universal put a bunch of money into advertising and garbage, because this movie was well advertised. It was advertised everywhere, and there were posters in movie theaters and garbage. So, and they probably, a lot of that was just buying themselves publicity. So I hope they up the budget enough that they are more willing to show more of like the horror elements. If they downplay jump scares, because I could see this kind of being an okay movie. Like, it's not for me, but I mean, if they kind of identify more with the actual psychology that these people have behind them, maybe elaborate that these aren't just average high school students, these guys are kind of douchebags. Maybe have a character that we can relate to that doesn't die at the end, because maybe they're a good enough person that whoever killed themselves doesn't want to exact revenge on them, you know?
Maybe don't make the second movie so.
Yeah, maybe not. But I mean, there's a lot of things you could fix on it, and so I think it could have been better. It could have been it's a concept. Yeah. So, I don't know, that's my problem. So, I guess the last thing is, Aiden, what's your vote? This or Paul Blart? Unfriended or Paul Blart? I shouldn't say this, that can get confusing.
Unfriended was definitely the worst of the two. Paul Blart, I got a lot of amusement out of making fun of it, but in the end it was also I don't know if it was better done, but I liked the movie more.
Better done. It's hard to say. I mean, at least they rented out a casino. I mean, they had a higher budget and shit, but at least it felt like they got actors that some of them maybe wanted to work on Paul Blart.
I don't think that's true at all.
Like the black girl, she wasn't a good actor, but she tried.
She gave it a shot.
I don't know. It felt less like a cash-in. Paul. Okay, no, that's not true. They both felt like huge cash-ins. Equal. Well, I don't know. Like, Unfriended became a cash-in. I don't know if it started as a cash-in or if it was trying to make money based on the fact that it was a preachy, or not make money, but get awards based on the fact that it's a preachy horror movie. Because that's the big thing now. Let's see.
I don't know. The advertising.
I think Unfriended is worlds worse than Paul Blart. It's undeniable. There's nothing really I had fun with on Unfriended. I was just kind of like, that's not how people act, you know? And it felt weird, like there were different embarrassing things they could have done. Like maybe Laura Barnes had a video of her, you know, blowing a dude or something. That's kind of what I figured, but I mean, like, she shits her pants and everyone tells her to kill herself for that seemed weird. Especially because there are real situations where people have done this, and I think you're kind of just exploiting that, but you're doing a really dumb plot around it and not, I don't know. It just felt weirdly exploitive and in a terrible way, and everything about the movie just seemed ridiculous, and that's why I disliked that more. At least Paul Blart, I had fun just kind of being like...
The blonde girl should have lived. She did nothing wrong. Neither
So
did
did
the hacker.
The hacker, he smoked weed, so they had to kill him.
Yeah, and they called the blonde girl a slut,
And
but she
at
didn't
the
do
time,
anything to Laura
at the
Barnes.
start, you think about the hacker, and you're like, he's the biggest douche in the movie. But by the end of the movie, you're like, no, he's actually probably the second least dude. I actually don't think he really had much to do with the Laura Barnes thing. He's just like, Laura Barnes was kind of a bitch when she was alive. But I mean, like, that's just him being honest, I guess. I mean, maybe she was a bitch while she was alive. We don't know. We didn't have any real evidence. That would have been another cool thing, is if they kind of, like, showed her life through, like, video, whatever. So we could have known Laura Barnes more, because maybe she was a complete bitch. Maybe she was a nice person. These people are more assy than they were before, you know? Because who knows if Laura Barnes was one of those people that, if the other characters were in that shoes, like the blonde girl, she shit her pants, maybe she would have done the same thing. That's something we don't know, because the movie didn't tell us, so I can't feel sympathy for this character. And that's why Paul Blart's better, in my opinion.
Feels weird to say, doesn't it?
Not really. I knew Paul Blart was going to be better than Unfriended. I knew it from the start. You didn't believe me. You sent a Snapchat that said, Unfriended. Connor said Unfriended was going to be worse than Paul Blart or something. And you were so sure you were going to be right after one of the cringe-inducing parts of Paul Blart.
I figured Unfriended would be pretty bad, but I didn't think it would be what it was.
It just sounds bad. And I kind of think it's disturbing that they're actually kind of exploiting this thing that's exploiting cyberbullying and actually making a franchise out of it for money.
I mean, it's
kind
not
of seems mean.
the original concept. I mean, all horror is exploitive of murder, but
I mean, this is different because this is like an actual problem where people are doing this to themselves, and it kind of seems
I mean,
like
it is a
Freddy Krueger is exploitive, but you know that's fun and just fake. This is like, I don't know. This one just seems more douchey than most. I guess I can't complain fully because there's a lot of great horror movies that exploit things that are things that shouldn't really be exploited. So I guess, but I mean, in this case, it just kind of seemed less tasteful than most because this is I don't know. I'm not going to complain about that and take points away from it or whatever. I'm just saying. I mean, I guess now that I think about it, you look at 90% of horror movies.
I mean, Alien is a movie about rape, so, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like the read-in message, but I mean,
the alien looks like a giant walking penis.
It does, but I mean,
you know, it lays eggs
that's an
inside you, and then
well, that's an undertone to the movie. But I mean, realistically, if you look at it at a glance, it's aliens running around killing you, not teen suicide blatantly, and people, you know, talking about really negative things. You know, I mean,
I guess.
You know, I don't know.
I guess it's all how you look at it.
It's all how you look at it, but I mean, whatever. So, that was our 45-minute rant on those two movies. Unfriended was worse. Paul Blart was pretty bad, too. I got some hucks from Paul Blart making fun of it, though. So.
I still wouldn't see it, though.
I would pay for Paul Blart, just if you're in the mood to make fun of a shitty movie. I would go to Paul Blart just to be like...
I would go in the day.
It's
get the
so
matinee
cringy
price.
that it's like when you like to watch like people like It's like watching a cringe compilation. You have fun for the same reason watching a cringe compilation as you do Paul Blart, and that's why Paul Blart is fun.
Yeah, I guess. Alright.
And it's a retarded concept, and that makes it kind of funny too.